Tales of Quill, the beginning. In the heart of a forgotten library, hidden away from the world, sat an ancient, dusty inkpot. This was no ordinary inkpot. Inside, swirling with magic and mystery, lived a tiny, curious being made of ink. For as long as the ink could remember, it had been waiting for something, though it didn't know exactly what. The ink listened to the creaks and whispers of the library, to the shifting of old scrolls and the gentle rustling of paper. It longed to explore beyond its pot, but it had never been able to escape, not until today. Suddenly, the stillness of the library was interrupted. A gust of wind, soft but mischievous, swept through the room, rattling the shelves and flipping open the covers of forgotten books. The inkpot teetered on the edge of the shelf and, with a soft pop, it tipped over. A splash of ink spilled out and landed on the open pages of a large ancient book. For a moment, the ink sat there, a simple blot on the page. But then, something strange happened. The blot began to ripple. It stretched and shifted until it took the shape of a small humanoid figure. The figure blinked. Its inky eyes, wide and curious, looked around at the world for the first time. It stretched its tiny arms and legs, marveling at its newfound form. The figure was small, childlike, with a body that shimmered and shifted, made entirely of liquid black ink. Symbols and ancient words rippled across its skin, fading in and out of view. For the first time, the ink was alive. It looked down at the book beneath it, the letters on the page swirling around its feet. This was no ordinary book. It was alive, like everything in this magical library. The pages were filled with stories waiting to be told, characters waiting to be awakened. Quill, though he didn't know he was called that yet, could feel the magic humming beneath him. He took a step forward, leaving tiny ink footprints on the blank page. Around him, books towered like mountains, their pages fluttering as if whispering secrets. Scrolls unraveled themselves like rivers flowing across the floor. The library was vast, far beyond what Quill could comprehend. He wasn't afraid. He was curious. And he was ready. But something was missing. He had no name, no identity. He was just ink. Quill thought for a moment, gazing at the letters swirling beneath his feet. Names held power, and he needed one. Just then, a faint whisper echoed through the library. It came from the shadows, from the very pages of the books themselves. Quill! The name seemed to rise from the ink around him, from the very letters on the page. It wasn't a voice he could see, but he could feel it. The ink around him began to shift and stretch, forming the word on the page beneath him. Quill. "That's me," he said softly, his voice a gentle ripple in the silence. "I'm Quill." As soon as he spoke the name, the library seemed to hum with approval. The books around him rustled, and the inkpot above him glowed faintly, as if sealing his fate. Quill grinned, excitement bubbling up inside him. He had a name, he had a form, and now he was ready for adventure. But this wasn't just any library. Quill could sense it now. The air was thick with magic, with stories that had never been told. Some of them were light and joyful, but others were dark, strange, and filled with danger. Quill could feel the pull of those stories, the ones that whispered in the shadows. He wandered through the library, his ink body rippling with every step. As he passed by the towering shelves, he could see books glowing faintly, their pages filled with worlds waiting to be explored. Heroes, villains, monsters, all of them locked inside, waiting for someone to bring them to life. Quill reached out, his quill-like fingers brushing against the spine of a large leather-bound book. The cover was old, cracked, and covered in strange runes. As soon as his ink touched the surface, the book began to tremble. Its pages fluttered open, revealing a swirling portal of words and images. Quill leaned in, his eyes wide with wonder. Inside the book, he saw mountains made of ice, forests filled with creatures that had never been seen before, and castles that stretched into the clouds. But he also saw shadows, dark, creeping things that slithered through the words like poison. Creatures born of nightmares waiting to be unleashed. Quill's heart, or whatever an ink being's heart might be, raced with excitement. This was his chance. His adventure was about to begin. He stepped closer to the book, the swirling pages pulling him in. But just as he was about to leap into the story, something strange happened. The room grew cold. The shelves of books began to shake, and the air filled with a low, haunting hum. From the shadows at the far end of the library, a figure appeared, tall, cloaked in darkness, with glowing eyes that watched Quill with dangerous intent. The figure moved closer, its step silent but menacing. Quill froze. He didn't know what this creature was, but he could feel the power radiating from it. This wasn't a story from a book. This was something much darker, something that had escaped from the shadows of the library itself. "You," the figure hissed, its voice like the rustling of dry leaves. "You should not be here." Quill's body rippled with fear, but he stood his ground. He had just come to life, and he wasn't about to back down now. "I belong here," Quill said, his voice small but steady. "This is my home." The figure chuckled darkly, the sound echoing through the library. "We shall see." Before Quill could react, the figure reached out, its shadowy hand stretching toward him. But just as it was about to grab him, the portal inside the book flared to life. A burst of light shot from the pages, enveloping Quill in a warm, protective glow. Without thinking, Quill leapt into the book, the portal closing behind him with a snap. The library vanished, and Quill found himself tumbling through the air, spinning through a whirlwind of words and images. He had no idea where he was going or what lay ahead. But one thing was certain. This was just the beginning. As the world around him began to take shape, Quill could see strange lands and mysterious creatures forming from the pages. His adventure had begun, and there was no turning back. What awaited him on the other side? Would he face friends or foes? Would he discover the secrets of the library, or would the shadows find him again? Quill didn't know, but he was ready.